Guided by his newfound understanding, he explores the small, dark passageways that he dismissed before. He enters the hidden doorways that take time to unlock. Sometimes these new doors and passages lead to dead ends too, but at least now there's hope. He is in new territory, unfamiliar territory. No longer is he endlessly finding himself back at his starting point. Now he is wandering, for real. As he leaves familiar territory farther behind, his understanding of the structure of that part of the maze becomes less and less useful. He faces choice points without a mental map. Should he turn left or right? At those moments he again stops, gets quiet, and listens, tuning in again to that musical sound that he keeps in his awareness. From which direction does the sound come through most clearly? That is the direction he chooses. Sometimes when he follows the music, it seems to take him the wrong way. That couldn't possibly be the way out, he thinks. But then the passage turns again, and he comes to trust more and more this sound that calls him. Following the music, eventually the man reaches the final passageway, which he recognizes because of the daylight glow at the end of it. He emerges into the sunlit realm he always knew must exist. It is more beautiful than he ever dared imagine. And there he finds the source of the music. It is his lover, who has been singing to him all this time. Chapter 1. A Crisis of Being. A Lost Truth. I still remember the event that made me into an environmentalist. I was 7 or 8 years old, standing outside with my father watching a large flock of starlings fly past. "That's a big flock of birds," I said. My father told me then about the passenger pigeon, whose flocks once filled the skies, so vast that they stretched from horizon to horizon for hours on end. "They are extinct now," he told me. "People would just point their guns to the sky and shoot randomly, and the pigeons would fall. Now there aren't any left." I'd known about the dinosaurs before then, but that was the first time I really understood the meaning of the word extinct. I cried in my bed that night, and many nights thereafter. That was when I still knew how to cry, a capacity that, once extinguished through the brutality of teenage boyhood in the 1980s, was nearly as hard to resuscitate as it would be to bring the passenger pigeon back to Earth. These two kinds of extinction are related. From what state of being do we extinguish other species, ruin earth and sea, and treat nature as a collection of resources to be allocated for maximum short-term benefit? It can only come from the constriction, numbing, and diversion of our capacity to feel empathy and love. No mere personal failing. This numbing is inseparable from the deep narratives that run our civilization and the social systems that those narratives support. Appearances to the contrary, it is neither folly nor myopia that sets us on a path of collective ruin. These are symptoms of a deeper malady. Would you say of the alcoholic that if he were only shown that drinking harms his health, relationships, and economic security, then his dismal future would scare him into quitting? Of course not. The foolish sacrifice of the future for temporary surcease from the inner pain isn't driven by stupidity. Therefore, you can harangue him about the damage to his liver all you want, and maybe he'll say, "Yeah, you're right," and cut back for a few weeks, or he will promise to drink less with every good intention. But nothing will really change. How similar that scenario is to the climate talks. We agree to cut back, and agree at the same time to ignore the social and economic conditions that make cutting back impossible. Carbon emissions continue to grow after nearly 3 decades of climate talks and agreements. This pattern extends beyond the matters of climate. Species continue to perish, bat colonies and beehives to collapse, forests to wither, coral reefs to bleach, and elephants and whales to die. No one wants to live on a barren planet, a sick planet, or a dying planet, yet like an addict, we seem helpless to change course. Like many cliches, our addiction to fossil fuels contains a lost truth.